an hour by 2024. Trump's Republicans, though, refuse to raise the minimum wage. On Wednesday, Trump's Labor Department took the first step to take overtime pay eligibility away from millions of workers. An Obama administration overtime rule expanded overtime pay for so-called managerial workers. Before Obama, these workers making more than $23,000 a year could not get overtime pay. The Obama rule expanded that salary threshold up to $47,000. Millions of people earning between $23,000 and $47,000 would get overtime pay under Obama's rule. Trump's Labor Department, though, doesn't want those workers to get overtime pay. The news is brought to you by Impact, the Ironworker Management Progressive Action Cooperative Trust. Impact's mission is more jobs for contractors and for ironworker members. You can become an ironworker in Washtenaw Community College's pre-apprenticeship program. Finish 24 credits at your own pace and become an Ironworker Local 25 apprentice. Earn while you learn. Apply now at wcnet.edu/iron. That's wcnet.edu/iron. You've been listening to WIN, Workers Independent News. For more information, visit workersindependentnews.com.
It's time for the Rick Smith Show.
I want you to get up now. I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, "I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!"
I don't want to abolish government. I simply want to reduce it to the size where I could drag it into the bathroom and drown in the bathtub.
You bet I cut the taxes at the top.
How dare you? How dare you? Go ahead. Make my day.
The Rick Smith Show starts now.
Brothers, sisters, working class heroes, this is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for tuning in today on the big program. Lots of things to get to, lots to talk about. Yesterday, oh my goodness. Look, the White House is turning into the fun house, and not a fun house either. One of those scary, crazy fun houses where you're actually worried that someone's going to come out and hit you with a freaking axe. What you've got is a Republican Party diligently working to take health care from 23 million people so that they can give tax breaks to the wildly wealthy. Then there's the ongoing Sessions saga. Will Trump fire Jeffy or will he not? Will the base be upset? And then yesterday's major Twitter distraction over transgender people serving in the military that completely gave cover to the fact that the Republican Party is working diligently to take health care from 23 million people while making the wildly wealthy wealthier, and Simple Simon's Sessions saga. If that's not enough, last night you had Mr. Transparency, Mook, or Mooch, or whatever the heck his name is. You had him tweeting out that he believed that Reince Priebus was the guy who leaked out his financial disclosure forms. And then he quickly, Mr. Transparency, deleted the tweet. And here's the thing. I mean, this is the thing. Once you put it out there, someone's going to screenshot it. It doesn't go away. So let me let you in a little thing, Mr. Transparency. Again, it's the cover-up. It's the, you put it out there. Why'd you delete it? That is now a story and a thing of its own. Interesting. Scaramucci is now saying that he believes that it's Reince little preebie who's leaked this stuff, and he's going to the FBI. It's a felony. And you go, never mind the fact that, these documents are going to be public record anyway, that it's really not a felony. Never mind that. It's how dysfunctional. And the headlines this morning were, civil war in the White House. You go, at some point, don't we realize that having amateurs, that having these massive egos and these people who have their own agendas in these positions of power is a dangerous, bad thing? And our media is, like little puppy dogs going to the shiny, or the cat going after the shiny thing or the string, or the puppy dog going after the bone. Yesterday, I watched, a bunch of news outlets all talking about the transgender issue, which, look, I agree, an important issue, but not the entire day, not while you're talking about a Republican Party looking to strip health care from millions of people. The largest piece of legislation, at least, in the last 10 years. And you can say, no, Rick, Obamacare was no, that was giving people the ability to get access to health care. And while it was a massive, huge step forward, this is even bigger than that. This is the core of who we are. Because they're literally talking about, screw it, we can't come up with a solution. We have no idea what to do, but we know we don't want Obamacare. We have no plan, no clue, no ideas, nothing. We don't know what to do. Because the things that we've put forth, the American people absolutely, positively, unequivocally hate. Everything that they've put forth. When you get 17% of the people to go, that's a good idea, and 83% of the people in this country at this time to say, no, not so much, you really have a bad idea. And, look, they have to follow through on their campaign pledge. They have to. They have to repeal, and they have to replace it with something. Even if it's like the South Park episode where they replaced Kenny's heart with a baked potato. That's basically what we're seeing here. We're seeing a Republican Party who has not a clue on how to do anything constructive. Doing heart surgery and going, oh yeah, baked potato is good as a heart. That's really just mind-blowing to me. And yet, what did we spend all day yesterday talking about? A couple of tweets. By the president. And look, give him credit. The more you look at this, the more you think about it, the more you have to give Steve Bannon credit. Because he's the puppeteer. Those tweets were masterfully put out. You don't think he just woke up and goes, you know what? Nah, the heck with those people. This was masterful cover. This completely changed the tone of discussions yesterday. And it also, simultaneously, while putting the Republicans in this light of, you're taking health care from millions of people, you horrible schmucks. What are you doing? It put the Democrats on the defensive because now, you're frothing up the base. The base who's going to lose their health insurance? And this is one of those things that's just amazing to me. Because there are going to be millions of Trump supporters who are going to lose their health care. They're going to go back to having nothing. Let that sink in. Their hatred for fill in the blank is so great that they're willing to lose health care. That they're willing to die years earlier. I mean, that is just, wow. And while we're focused on the distractions, and look, there's going to be a lot more. The White House is in major turmoil. The Sessions saga is real. The fun there is, well, if it weren't so sad, it would be funny. Because think about what Jeffy gave up. Jeffy was a very popular senator in Alabama. Good racist Alabama senator. Very popular. Won re-election over and over and over. Could have been there for the rest of his life. And look, he may run again and win the next time around. gave up the Senate seat to become Attorney General, only to make it. And look, I said this back when they nominated him. I said, I don't think he makes a year. Because this administration is so neurotic, so off the rails, that you just have to go, why would you take a job in this administration? Who in their right mind would want to work for Donald J. Trump? So today, I understand there's more on the I guess we're going to be going after a skinny repeal, which basically means they're going to end the mandates. No more individual mandate, no more employer mandate, and they're going to cut out the money. They're going to give no more taxing of medical devices. So how we paid for it's going to be gone, and making sure that everyone in is gone. So basically all they're doing is they're setting up the implosion even faster. Because they've already gutted some of the other things like the ratings pools and stuff like that. They've already made it for the insurance companies to go, we can't do this. We can't be in certain markets because there are way too many sick people. You go into a lot of these counties in Appalachia where they've never had health care, and for the first time they go, oh, I got a card. Way too expensive to insure those people. Easier to let them die off 10 years sooner. So we're going to talk a lot about that today, a little bit on the healthcare thing. To me is the most important issue. The transgender thing will pop up. Sessions will pop up. Lots on the agenda. Love to hear your thoughts. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Is this Saramucci thing? Is this another political theater dog and pony show? Or is it real? Is there real division within the White House? And maybe Reince is on his way out. We shall certainly see. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, Bill Scheer is going to be here. Talk about yesterday's events. Amazing times. Quick break. Right back. Stick around. This is the Rick Smith Show. For working people.
There's a flaw in the system, and the fly in the ointment is gonna bring the whole thing down. Floodgates are open. We've let the demons loose. The big guns have spoken, and we've fallen for the ruse.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1903. Labor leader Mother Mary Harris Jones was leading a march of children laborers to President Theodore Roosevelt's summer home in New York. The long march had began 20 days before in Philadelphia. Mother Jones was hoping to draw national attention to the plight of child workers. The action caught the public's attention, and across the nation, newspapers reported on the March of the Mill Children. All the way in Leadville, a town in the mountains of Colorado west of Denver, the Herald Democrat carried the story of Mother Jones's East Coast March. The paper's July 27th article began, quote, "It is a pathetic spectacle. That little army of Mother Jones, marching through the broiling heat of summer, lay a petition before the president. She says truly that her errand is as vital as any which takes persons to Oyster Bay. She comes to please the cause of the child laborers, and to emphasize her protest, has with her several score of ill-clad, puny children, the result of the enforced work of these children in factories. When the children's march reached the president's door 2 days later, the president was not there to meet them. Yet the march had sparked national attention. In 1904, the National Child Labor Committee formed to take action on the issue. Pennsylvania passed tougher child labor restrictions the next year, but federal protections would have to wait until the next President Roosevelt. The passage of the Fair Labor Standards Act in 1938, signed by President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, finally included nationwide limits to child labor.
Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, and follow us on the Twitters at Labor History in 2.
Chances are, when you took a shower this morning, an AFSCME member made sure that water was clean. When you drove to work, an AFSCME member maintained the road. When you rode an elevator, an AFSCME member inspected it. I'm David Philman, Executive Director of AFSCME Council 13, the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees. AFSCME members enforce regulations, keep prisoners behind bars, take care of patients, protect the environment, and more. The work isn't glamorous, the salaries aren't high, but AFSCME members serve the public in every aspect of our daily lives. Chances are, you'll never see that AFSCME member working in a sewage plant, diving underwater to repair a bridge, or answering a 911 call. But aren't you glad they do? For more information, visit AFSCME13.org. We are AFSCME.
We make Pennsylvania happen!
Chances are, when you
No matter how hard you try, you can't stop us now.
The proud defender of the American dream, Rick Smith.
Since the prehistoric ages and the days of ancient Greece, walked down through the Middle Ages, planet Earth kept going through changes, and then the Renaissance came, and times continue to change. Nothing stayed the same, but there were always renegades, like Chief Sam Tom Paine.
Welcome back to The Rick Smith Show. Check out our website, thericksmithshow.com. Questions, comments, something on your mind, you can email me, Rick, at thericksmithshow.com. You know, you look at all of this stuff from yesterday, and it's just absolutely, in my view, just completely mind-blowing. In fact, you look at the news that the Trump administration actually was threatening Lisa Murkowski, saying, you know what, this could have major, major repercussions.
It's just, one of those things where you go, at some point you have to wake up and go, this administration is going to do just about anything it can do to threaten people, to push them in, the direction to take health care from millions of people. It's just absolutely, absolutely mind-blowing. And it's one of those times where you go, what exactly is wrong with us as a nation? And here to talk about, this debacle and whatever else we can jump into. I've asked Bill Scheer. He's a contributing editor over at Politico magazine, also a contributor at Real Clear Politics. Bill, thanks for taking time for us.
Always a pleasure.
So, you look at yesterday and, the big cover being the transgender issue, which completely wiped the healthcare discussion out of the mainstream media. But to me, healthcare is the central issue.
Absolutely. And it's a little unclear how poised Republicans are to actually pass something. They don't have 50 votes for anything just yet. They've already failed they failed on a repeal and replace, and they've failed on a repeal only. And they're pushing what they call skinny repeal, which is probably the most idiotic proposal they could come up with. It's literally pulling out the one Jenga piece that would destroy the entire tower of blocks by repealing just the individual mandate and a couple other things, which is what you need in the current system to keep premiums down. I mean, people complain they're not down enough, and that there's an argument that the mandate penalty is not stiff enough. So younger, healthier people are saying, I'll pay the penalty. I don't need to buy insurance. But you don't solve that problem by eliminating the individual mandate and having more young, healthy customers not be in the system, because that just shifts the cost onto the older and sicker customers. So it's completely amateurish. And if you take what certain Republicans have said on the level, they won't vote for it. They've said we won't vote for a repeal without a replace. We're not going to do things to raise premiums. The whole point is to get premiums down. Not every Republican says that, but there are enough that have prevented them from getting to 50. And so if they mean what they say so far, that's not going to fly either.
Yeah, I mean, the only way you get premiums down is you kick sick people off the plans.
That's the other way to do it, but they say they're not going to get rid of the rule that says you can't deny coverage for pre-existing conditions. I mean, so you balance that rule with the individual mandate, so the cost of keeping those with pre-existing conditions on is balanced by making sure young, healthy people are in the system too. That's individual responsibility. That's Mitt Romney's plan. That was the old Heritage Foundation plan. No free riders.
Yep.
That's the deal.
Yeah, wasn't that the Republican Party's ideology for a while? Personal responsibility. Wasn't that kind of it? I mean, because I keep hearing these idiots telling me, well, you can't get sick and then buy insurance, can't crash your car and then buy insurance, can't burn your house down and then buy insurance. And I'm going, but isn't that what you're kind of setting up by not having everyone into the pool? You're having people go, well, I'll wait, till well down the line when I might need it.
Right. They're not in a place where they're functioning on the basis of intellectual consistency and policy rationality. This is governing out of spite. Obama did this, and so I'm going to undo it. And the problem with that is once you get into the details and you realize, hey, this is not only going to make things go haywire, it's going to make things go haywire for the people that voted for us, and that's not tenable. And so far you have, you only need to lose 3 Republicans to not be able to pass this. We've had more than 3 say, I'm not going to put myself on the line for a bill that's going to blow up in my face in a year or 2. I don't care what Donald Trump says or what Mitch McConnell says. I can read the writing on the wall. Now, it may be the only chance for that level of rationality to not win the day is if McConnell says to folks, hey, don't make this die. No one wants to be blamed for killing repeal. Just pass this half-baked, nonsensical piece of legislation so we can get to House-Senate conference, and then maybe we can pull a rabbit out of the hat there, which, if you're being rational, you would say, that's ridiculous. We've spent 7 years coming up with an alternative. We can't do it. Why would a House-Senate conference make this problem any better? It's not. If we can't solve it now, it's not going to get solved.
Right.
But we'll see if McConnell can eke this out for another few weeks by doing that.
Yeah, I have an acquaintance who runs Republican campaigns. You would call it a Republican operative, and he said, look, nobody thought that the Republicans were going to be in control right now. Nobody planned for this. They never had a plan. There was never anything in the works. This is all off the fly. They have no idea where they're going because they never thought they would be here, and it was such a great political attack line. It was such a great campaign that they couldn't not use it, but now they're basically eating the fact that they don't have a plan.
Well, and I can understand being the dog that caught the car, not being prepared would lead to problems like this. And there's a parallel to when Bill Clinton became president. Now, he was expecting to win, unlike Trump and the Republicans, but he was young. He had a young staff. They didn't know the rhythms of Washington well, and they were not planning to prioritize letting gays serve openly in the military. That wasn't what their agenda was.
Right.
But he got asked about it. I said, "Are you going to follow through this?" And he says, "Yes." What's he going to say? I didn't mean to do this. Of course he's going to say yes. But then Colin Powell opposed it, who was still Joint Chiefs of Staff. One of the top Democrats, who was kind of conservative, Sam Nunn, opposed it. All of a sudden, Clinton team's like, oh, I guess we got to solve this problem. And they spent months trying to hash out a compromise, and they came up with the very awkward don't ask, don't tell, which made nobody happy, and it sapped a lot of their political capital. But at least in defense of Clinton, they reached an end point and moved on to the next thing. Whereas now you have Republicans, after failing repeatedly on this subject and seeing their polls drop, no one supports this bill in the polls. They've stalled out on the rest of their agenda. The old adage is when you're in a hole, stop digging. They can't get it.
Yeah.
They told themselves, oh, we promised this, so we have to do it. You've broken so many promises. No one's going to blame you for breaking another one if you can at least follow it with some kind of policy success that people like, but they can't get there because they can't quit.
Yeah. I mean, it's this bizarre obsession. And look, that comes from the leadership. That comes from the White House. I mean, here's a guy who just obsesses, like a child, can't fixated on this. And what's interesting to me is I don't think he has a clue of what this entails. In fact, I don't know if you saw the interview that he did with the Times where he said, you start off as a young guy, you pay about $12 a year for a policy. Then when you get to be old, it gets to be pretty good. And I'm going, what world is this guy living in?
Well, I mean, he's out to lunch. He has no idea about healthcare policy. He has no idea about the specifics, and that certainly has an impact on the process. But Mitch McConnell should know better. Paul Ryan should know better. Mitch McConnell, whatever you want to say about him, I presume going into this process he was a cold-eyed, cold-hearted realist. He was not going to waste people's time. He does not want to go into the midterm elections achieving bupkis for his party.
Right.
And so you would think if you were McConnell, you would say, look, this is a dead end. We have to keep the government open next month. We have to raise the debt ceiling by October. We need to, if we want to have some kind of policy success, we need to move to tax reform. Maybe you want to go deregulate something else. I mean, just thinking like a Republican now. It's something I can say I did that I could make some argument made someone's life better. And to waste now, we're already coming into August. They are nowhere on tax reform. And they're running out of time. That's the only other big thing they say they're going to work on. I mean, they haven't even done anything on infrastructure, for example. Infrastructure was the logical thing to start with.
Absolutely.
Because both parties actually like it.
Absolutely.
You could have had an easy win if you started with there. Instead, they got hung up on this. And you think McConnell would be rash enough to pull the plug, and he can't seem to do it.
But again, you come back to, the base keeps hammering them on, you said you were going to repeal this, even though, and this is the bizarre thing to me, even though I actually know people who are going to lose health insurance because they get their insurance through the ACA, they're still pushing for a repeal because it came from Obama. They really believe that there's a free market solution out there that is going to get them, the utopia. They're going to get great coverage at a cheap rate. It's going to be fabulous, and it's not going to cover those people.
Oh, I think there are ideological conservatives who are very focused on having some sort of magical free market system where everyone, barters with their doctor and gets wonderful health care. But there are a lot of people that voted for Trump who are not ideologues. They just want a better deal. They might have had a misguided notion of what the deal they had was, or thinking that some people were getting a better deal than them, and might have been not well informed. But whatever. The bottom line was they just want a better deal, and they see this bill and they say to themselves, "This is not a better deal." That's why the polls are so low. It's not just the left that doesn't like it; it's everyone in the middle and the right too. But the notion that you promised this, so you had to do it. Donald Trump promised Mexico was going to build the wall. He's not even trying to do that now. He's begging Congress to pay for the wall.
Or the big one, he was going to put Hillary in jail.
Right, he's going to put Hillary in jail, not doing that. He was going to make China currency manipulators, hasn't done that. He was going to break the Iran deal, hasn't done that. He's not averse to breaking promises. He's perfectly comfortable doing that, and his base is very tolerant of that because a lot of those folks don't care. They're just happy Trump is making liberals mad or the media mad. There's emotional satisfaction of upending the norms of Washington. They're not obsessed about every single promise that he made. You could break this one and get away with it because 80% of the country doesn't like what you came up with. Move on. Do something else someone might like. Maybe you find it would make you feel good.
Yeah, good point. But here's the other part of this. I think they've already done enough to destroy the Affordable Care Act without having to do any more. I mean, doing away with some of the ratings pools and taking some of the money from that. I mean, I think that's already enough.
Well, that's a very dicey move for them, and I think they are conflicted about that. Trump likes to say Obamacare is dead, it's failing, we'll just let it die, and the Democrats will come to the table. And he doesn't seem to appreciate that as a literal truth. He owns Obamacare. Tom Price, HHS Secretary, owns Obamacare. There are decisions that they have to make to administer it, where if they make a decision that hurts the marketplaces and takes insurance away from people, they get blamed, not Republicans. And so they haven't pulled the trigger on denying insurers those subsidies to cover low-income customers. They threaten it, but they haven't quite done it yet because they're stuck in the conundrum: do we want to sabotage Obamacare, or are we worried we're going to get blamed for it? And that's sort of in a holding pattern until they figure out what's going to happen with this legislation. I think the reality is they would get blamed for it. They own all of Washington. They own HHS. It is the law, and they will get held accountable on how well they administer it.
Yeah, I mean, I said from the beginning they should just repeal the name, put Trumpcare over Obamacare, and be done with it. Say, hey, we repealed it and we replaced it. Granted, it's the same damn thing, but we put a different name on it, and call it a win and move on. Didn't they used to do that in the past? I mean, do something really, really modest, call it a win, and move on.
I suspect this is my gut feeling, and then granted my spidey senses are not always right, but I think they're not going to pass this. They're going to be stuck with it, and every day we're farther and farther away from Obama. Every day it's less satisfying to govern out of spite and do the opposite of what he did. If you're in a state that has not accepted Medicaid expansion, you've not accepted free money from the federal government to provide health care to working class people in your state, many of those people who voted for Trump, somebody in that state is eventually going to say, hey, vote for me, so I will take that free money and give you health care. Eventually, people are going to come around because the numbers just add up for that.
Yeah.
And the only reason not to do it is spite. And I think they have to get to a place where they have to accept that the Affordable Care Act cannot die. It's built to last. It's embedded in the economic system now. And once they get there, they can do that and say, hey, we did it. Republicans expanded Medicaid. Hey, Republicans did these wonderful things for you. One of these days they'll get there. I don't know how fast, but one of these days.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But last question I've got for you. Were you surprised by the Gipper moment where John McCain came back to cast that 50th and deciding vote to push this forward? Were you surprised by that?
I'm not surprised. And I'm a little sympathetic to McCain. I think people are dumping on him a little too much and saying he's sort of, he's receiving health care from the government and trying to take away from others. And look, he's a conservative at the end of the day, and he doesn't like Obamacare. But he voted to let the process go forward, and I think a lot of Republicans don't want to be blamed for cutting off the process. But he made very clear in the speech afterwards he didn't like the bill as it was, and he wanted to fix it and wanted to improve it. And maybe the way he wants to improve it is not what you and I would want. But until he actually votes for a bill and is the deciding vote for that bill, which actively harms people, I'm going to cut him a little slack. He voted for the repeal and replace bill, but he knew that 9 Republicans weren't voting for it, so that's kind of a freebie vote that wasn't going to harm anybody. If he voted for that skinny repeal, which is literally written on the back of a cocktail napkin, I would have a lot less respect for him. But I don't think we've gotten to that point yet.
Yeah, well, look, I said, the other day, I understand it's a procedural vote to move forward, but at least we should be moving forward on something that we have a clue of where we're going. Nobody has any idea where you're going with this.
Right, and it may be that they will have to be held accountable for putting us on a train to nowhere, where it does lead to something that's half-baked and hurts people. I suspect they're just going to go around in circles and not actually land anywhere, and they're going to have to pull the plug.
No, we'll see what happens. Bill, I appreciate you taking some time for us. Always great talking with you.
Same here. Take care.
Thanks so much, Bill Scheer. You want to check out some of his work? We've got a link at thericksmithshow.com. He's a contributing editor there over at Politico magazine. Quick break. Right back. Stick around. This is The Rick Smith Show for working people.
Station to station. Hand in hand. Across the nation. Got to have a celebration.
Not right wing, just right. The Rick Smith Show.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2.
On this day in labor history, the year was 1869. That was the day labor leader William Silvis died. Silvis was born in Armball, Pennsylvania. He learned the trade of wagon making from his father, but soon he left home to take up an apprenticeship as an iron worker. He found work in Philadelphia. At the time, there was an increasing practice of iron molders to hire unskilled workers as helpers for the skilled craftsmen. This led to skilled workers seeing their wages cut. Silvis joined a strike against the wage erosion led by the Journeyman, Stove, and Hollowware Molders Union. Soon, he was elected secretary of the union, but Silvis understood that to truly have power, the iron molders would need to organize beyond Philadelphia. And so in 1859, 12 molders from various unions met in Philadelphia to plan to join together. The Civil War put those plans on hold. During the war, as men went to fight, many workers saw their wages increase due to the labor shortage. But prices at the stores rose even more quickly, and it became harder and harder to make ends meet. Recognizing the need for labor to organize, in 1863, Silvis helped found the Iron Molders International Union. He became the first president of the new union. 21 locals joined under the Iron Molders International Union, and it grew to include 8,000 workers. But Silvis had a bigger vision for the labor movement. He thought all skilled trades should band together to improve wages and working conditions. So in 1866, he founded the National Labor Union. The National Labor Union quickly grew to 30,000 workers. But Silvis died in 1869, cutting short his efforts to grow a national union. The union continued until 1873, when it dissolved.
Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com.
Here's one of those moments. You know, while there's all this dysfunction in the White House, the Democrats who never seem to miss an opportunity to shoot themselves in the foot, they're dithering over the better deal. You know, we've heard the better deal, right? We're going to start talking about economic messaging. We're going to start doing a bunch of stuff that's going to help, move us in the right direction. You remember that? The whole point of, hey, maybe we should have, a better message. Maybe we should go back to the idea of, it's about the economy, stupid. Evidently, The Hill's reporting today that a number of Democrats are concerned that excluding liberal social issues like abortion rights, immigration reform, LGBT rights, and the environment may deflate their base and sink their chances for 2018. Look, regardless of what the message is, Democrats have been on the right side of the social issues. And this is one of those things that I've been saying for a very long time. I'm an economy first guy. I'm someone who believes kitchen table, that's what's important. Healthcare, jobs, wages, trade policy. That's where my focus has always been. Now, I've been drug kicking and screaming sometimes into the social issues, which I honestly don't think should be the main focus of our debate. Because, look, at the end of the day, if you can't eat, at the end of the day, if you can't keep food on the table for the kids, roof over the head, education, that stuff going forward, all that other stuff falls apart. And I believe most people are on the side of, you know what? Do what you got to do. Or as my daughter says, you be you. You do you. Don't keep shoving it down our throats. And, on the gay marriage issue, it wasn't my thing, but look, you want to get married? God bless you. Good luck. Best to you. Am I going to go out marching in the streets? Probably not. Same thing with the transgender issue. Makes sense that if you're dressed up like a woman, you look like a woman, you go to the women's bathroom. That's simple. Now, if you're a 300-pound guy with a beard and unshaven legs wearing a dress, and it's clear there's some problems there. I don't know how you deal with that. As my grandfather always said, you have the right to do whatever you want to do until your rights infringe upon mine. Or as Justice Black said, you have the right to swing your fists around until it touches the tip of my nose. Yes, you have the right to do whatever you want until it affects others. And, because look, the reason I bring up the 300-pound guy with the dress and the beard is I actually saw this in public once, and my kids were pointing and looking and laughing. I said, "No, come on, relax. Let him be." The question is, do you want that guy going into the men's room or in the women's room with your daughter? Most people no. And we've got to understand that that's how people think. And there's got to be accommodation for. There used to be a time when we could solve these problems. There used to be a time where this wasn't the main issue of an entire day. This is what they talked about all day yesterday, the transgender issue in the military, while the Republicans are trying to take health care from millions of people. And look, while I think it's an important issue, I do. It's something that should be worked out. It's not to the level of taking health care from millions of people. And this is where the Democrats had better wake up, because they did lose that white working class. And I know there are people saying, well, no need the white working class. They're diminishing. Yes, you do. You still need the white working class. There still need to be policies that help them. So, the Democrats are now saying this better deal is about going back to our base, going back to economics, going back to making sure that there's food on the table, roof over the head, jobs, education. That's the focus. We're not going to delineate all of the immigration, the gay marriage. We're not doing that. We're on the right side. We're still gonna when it has to, we're still gonna fight for that stuff. But this is where our messaging is going. And you've got the party that's kind of now fighting each other, going, oh, well, what about this? And I go back to, look, at some point, you have to wake up that on a lot of these issues, it's going to cost you a lot of votes. And I know that sounds horrible. Fight for those issues, but focus on how do we move forward as working people. And the Democrats have lost that. And I've been saying that for years. The Democrats have lost that touch to working people. And look, I want equality for everyone. So don't take what I've said as, well, he's against this. I'm not. You know what? You want to marry a person of your sex? God bless you. Go do it. Women, if you choose to do with your body what you're going to do, that's your choice. It's not mine. It's not a bunch of guys in the Senate. Do I think we should have policies that encourage people to want to bring children into this world as someone who has 3 of them? Absolutely. But it's not my choice, not my decision, not my ability to say. And government shouldn't be. And the weird thing about all of this is this stuff is coming from the people who tell us that they want smaller, less intrusive government. It's nuts. Absolutely nuts. So I'm hoping the Democrats figure this out, because I think the idea of the better deal is not a bad idea. Moving in that direction of how we get back to an economic message while still supporting those other things is going to be, I think, the task. Because look, the Republicans are going to keep throwing this stuff out to Democrats, and it'll be interesting to see how they bite. Yesterday, interestingly enough, a few Republicans actually came around on the transgender issue. So we will see what the Democrats do. It's, wow. Circular firing squad. Quick break. Right back with the news. Stick around. This is the Rick Smith Show. For working people. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1918. That was the day miners' president Ginger Goodwin was shot dead in British Columbia. His murder sparked Canada's first general strike in Vancouver the following week. Goodwin had arrived in British Columbia 8 years earlier and found work in the Cumberland mines on Vancouver Island. He considered working conditions in the mines absolutely appalling and began advocating for safety and organizing miners. He was soon blacklisted after participating in a 2-year coal miners' strike for recognition on the island. He moved to Trail, British Columbia, where he emerged as a Socialist Party candidate in the 1916 election. He was also elected president of the International Union of Mine, Mill and Smelter Workers District 6, the vice president of British Columbia's Federation of Labor, and the head of the local Trades and Labor Council. He openly expressed his opposition to Canada's entry into the war, stating that workers were now employed in killing each other. He was found unfit for military duty after a medical exam. That was until he led a strike for the 8-hour day at Consolidated Mining and Smelting. It was the world's largest lead and zinc smelter and a key munitions producer during the war. His status was quickly changed to make him eligible for conscription. He fled to the Cumberland Hills, where he hid out for months to avoid the draft. And on this day, Goodwin was shot dead by a Dominion Police special constable. He was brought back to Cumberland, where thousands turned out for his funeral in a mile-long procession. The Vancouver labor movement was outraged by Goodwin's murder and called a one-day general strike on August 2nd to protest his killing.
Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, and follow us on the Twitters at Labor History in 2.
The most important issues of the day. This is The Rick Smith Show.
I woke up to this morning going, there's something clearly wrong in this country when Governor Sam Brownback Mountain is now being named as the ambassador at large for international religious freedom. I got to be honest, I didn't actually know we had an ambassador of religious freedom before. What? Maybe we did. I never saw it before. But now you've got this guy who has given massive tax breaks to very wealthy people and corporations and basically gutted Kansas's economy. Has taken food out of the mouths of children, has taken educational opportunities away, has basically destroyed the economy of Kansas. And they're saying, we're going to give you religious freedom ambassadorship? Are you freaking kidding me? This is this right here. Nuts. Anyway, let's find out what's going on. Speaking of nuts, let's go find out what's going on in Washington, D.C. and around the world. Victoria Jones, Talk Media News. Victoria, thanks for taking time for us.
Thank you.
So what do you think? Did we have an ambassador of religious freedom before, or is this new?
I think it's new. I think freedom is new.
Okay. Yeah.
Freedom generally, apparently, I think is new.
How absolutely nuts! I was speechless when I saw this because I'm going. I've heard of ambassadorships to different countries and stuff, but never mind. On a day like today, I gotta move into something that's actually important. What
is your last? Oh, Smith. No. I was wondering whether I should start targeting you for your last name.
Please do.
Well, I can't really. Smith and Jones, it sort of goes together, doesn't it?
Alias, yes.
Yeah, exactly. What a show, man. It's one of the best shows ever. I was in love with them. I didn't know which one I was in love with more each week.
There you go. Gave you
I
something.
was in love with the one that committed suicide.
Oh, wow. Gave you something to look forward to, didn't it? The good old days.
Yeah, not the committing suicide bit, but what a smile he had. You're taking me back, man.
Well, I do what I can do to help.
I may have to stream one of those shows on Netflix this weekend.
Do you think you can?
I don't know what it's. I'll find a bootleg place to stream it.
Maybe they would have it on the.
I bet it's on YouTube.
I would bet that.
I'm looking it up right now.
Okay, well there you go.
I mean, this is live talk radio. We can do what we like, right?
Absolutely. So you were a Ben Murphy guy or a Roger Davis guy?
Oh, Roger Davis.
Okay.
Who were you?
I was neither. I just thought, hey, my name's in it, so I might as well watch it.
It was a good show. It's on. It's episodes. Alias Smith and Jones, 68 videos on YouTube.
There you go. Now we know what you're going to do all weekend.
Well, no, because I'm so far behind on all the other shows that I only tape about 3 or 4 shows, but I work at night, so it's like I don't see anything.
Yeah, I don't really.
I haven't even
TV.
watched this week's Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I see. I this is going to make me sound really old and out of it. I've never watched one episode of Game of Thrones.
You can always start with season 1, dear.
Yeah, I'm not interested. There's nothing on TV that interests me. I don't have the kind of time to waste to sit and.
I don't either have time to waste, but I have to tell you. Let me tell you something.
Hit me.
There's a lot of dross on television, right? Agreed. Yes. There is some quite extraordinary quality being made. A lot of it is being made in Europe, but it's over here now.
Yeah,
it's not on mainstream TV. It's on cable, not necessarily pay cable. A lot of it's on regular cable. Not like but on channels that you probably have on your package. But there is some extraordinary quality, a lot of amazing documentaries, but also some shows that are just mind-blowingly well executed, that you go, after you watch it, I feel refreshed by that 55 minutes.
I've never
now
actually
I'll
had
tackle
that moment.
That.
You're going to have to give me a list, because I've never had that moment of watching TV and going, I'm refreshed. I usually watch something and go, well, there was an hour wasted.
When you tell me the kinds of things that you're interested in, I'll send you a list.
Yeah, okay. My wife's into all that BBC stuff. She watches Miss Marple or whatever it is, and Pinoir or Pignot or whatever.
Poirot.
Whatever. All of those. The British detective thing she's big into. And
I'll send her a list of more things that she'd like then.
Great. Thanks for that.
Divorce court.
Yeah, are you going to start sending the audio books too with the British, because she just loves the British accent. So
no, I'm going to send her some of the Nordic noirs. You wouldn't believe how much crime there is in the Nordic countries, and they have amazing detectives to solve them.
Okay. It always reminded me of that stupid show that she watched for a while with Angela Lansbury.
That was stupid.
That was just a dumb show, and I'm going, every week there's someone getting killed. Stay the hell out of that town.
That town's dreadful. That town, it's like Midsummer Murders, which she probably watches.
Yes, she does. That and the Pride and Prejudice and the this and the Midsummer this and that. And
does she speak with an English accent, your wife?
No, but she would. She does. She did travel. Her goal is to go to the UK. Here, I'm going to have to take her at some point in the next couple of years.
You're going to get dragged.
No, I have to. There's no choice. I mean, it's either that or divorce court. Which
is looking quite appealing right now.
Probably cheaper. But she did travel throughout. She lived in Spain for a while, studied there, and then with Europe and all of that stuff. Never made it to London, Britain, that stuff. So that's kind of the thing. That's like on her bucket list. And we're getting close to dying, so she keeps pushing.
Well, it's better to do. I'll tell you one thing they do over there, though, that she might like. They bury you in a coffin that's shaped like a proper old-fashioned coffin, like Dracula has.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice. I just want to be buried in a sheet. Just wrap me up in a sheet and 18 inches underground. I'll be done in a couple of years, and we won't waste all that land.
I want a sheet, too. I want a silk sheet. Just shove me in, let the worms have at me.
There you go. It's kind of it's eco-friendly. In fact, there are a couple of and I don't know how we're getting into this, but there are a couple of cemeteries that actually do that. They only lease you the land, I think, for like 80 years, so that someone else can use it.
Well, I think I'd like a nice wood coffin, but they can drill through. They can get through the wood. They get whatever they get to get through the wood, and then the worms go.
There you go. Yeah, well, there you go. So
cheerful, this, isn't it?
Yeah. So let's talk about something that actually is going to happen.
Yeah.
Is the skinny repeal going to happen?
Well, right now they don't have the vote,
right.
But Dean Heller of Nevada, the most endangered Republican in the Senate, was leaning towards it. Rob Portman was making noises towards it. People are making noises towards it, at least they were yesterday, but now they're learning more about it. And what they're learning is that, well, it's repealed, but it's not replaced. So you get rid of the individual and the business mandate, but you don't replace it with anything.
Right.
You've got a big hole, like that hole in the ground.
Yeah, I mean, isn't that the point, though? I mean, you have a
Not
number of
according to
Republicans.
the
That's what they
insurance
want.
companies. The insurance companies don't like it at all because they think it's going to really upend the markets and be very bad for consumers.
Well, that would be great for them because they can raise prices on people and kick people off and only get the really healthy people. It could be good, right?
The most extraordinary thing is happening with the insurance companies. They are coming out. Look, Blue Cross Blue Shield Association yesterday listed crucial elements of any final health bill. But what was amazing was that they said, they want a stable individual insurance market and the crucial elements to avoid steep premium increases and diminished choices that would make coverage unaffordable and inaccessible.
Yeah.
But that's what they want. They want coverage to be affordable and accessible. In other words, they want people to be able to afford to buy it.
Sure. I'm with them. But
and what they're seeing is that this isn't. I mean, Skinny repealed. The Democrats had it scored by the CBO by 2021, 4 years. They reckon over 16 million people are going to lose insurance.
Right. And look, I believe there are Republicans that are okay with that.
I think many Republicans don't know it because the Democrats have only just come out with this figure.
Yeah, I don't think they care.
And but I do think that Republicans are determined to get something done by the end of the week, and they're in the 20-hour debate, and then they've got this crazy vote-a-rama.
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of it, I don't think the Republicans care. They just want to win. It doesn't matter if it's scorched earth, doesn't matter who gets hurt. They just want their campaign pledge. Say, we repealed, we got rid of that legacy thing because, look, they lost on Medicaid, they lost on Medicare, they lost on Social Security, they lost on a lot of the New Deal stuff and the Great Society stuff. They're not losing on this. That's my view. That's simple.
But not now, but maybe when people do start to drop off.
Then we'll just start blaming them. I mean, that's what we do. Hey, well, they smoked or they ate too much or they lived next to a power plant or, they breathed air or drank water.
Yeah, there's problems.
That's simple. Well, good times in D.C. And I'm glad we spent time talking about Miss Marple and all the rest of the BBC shows, which I'm sure you'll fill my inbox with so my wife can then spend more time doing that.
I will be doing that probably tomorrow, and make sure you pass them on to your wife and don't delete them.
Would I do that? Yes. I would not do that. The other one she liked was this MI6 show.
What a show! It's MI5, actually. Oh, it's great.
Was it MI5?
MI5.
Or was it 7?
No, it's MI5, and I literally start walking around the room by about 3/4 of the way through an episode because it's like, how are they going to get out of this?
Oh, help me, Victoria. It's great talking with you.
Okay, bye.
Oh, please, somebody help me. Help me. Oh, my goodness. Let's take a quick break right back after this. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk.
Radio of, for, and by we the working people. The Rick Smith Show.
You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to thericksmithshow.com. If you've missed any portion of the program, you can download the podcast at thericksmithshow.com.
You're listening to WIN, Workers Independent News, a diversified media enterprises production. I'm Doug Cunningham. Senator Bernie Sanders is blasting what Trump says was a great step forward, the GOP Senate vote to advance repeal of the Affordable Care Act.
What Trump thinks is a great step forward is part of his belief that we should throw 22 million people off of health insurance, raise premiums for older workers, and cut Medicaid by $800 billion. That's not what the American people think is a great step forward.
Speaking on CNN, Sanders says medical studies show that when millions of people lose health insurance, thousands will die.
Study after study, including studies done at the Harvard School of Public Health, show when you throw 23 million people off of health insurance, people who are now receiving cancer treatment, people who have serious heart diseases, people who have diabetes, people who have life-threatening illnesses. What do you think happens? And what study after study shows is that many, many thousands of people will die. Republicans don't like to hear it. If they don't want to hear it, then they should not pass legislation that would do exactly that.
If Trump's Republicans were serious about lifting a finger to help working people, they would immediately vote to raise the minimum wage. That's because in the 21 states with a $7.25 an hour minimum wage, an average of 36.8% of the workforce would get raises if the minimum wage were raised. According to the National Employment Law Project, that's 20.7 million workers who would have more money in their pockets. Democrats do want to raise wages. Senator Chuck Schumer and Bernie Sanders have introduced the Raise the Wage Act of 2017 in the U.S. Senate, and 28 Democrats are co-sponsoring it. The Democrats want to raise wages to a minimum of $15 an hour by 2024. Trump's Republicans, though, refuse to raise the minimum wage. On Wednesday, Trump's Labor Department took the first step to take overtime pay eligibility away from millions of workers. An Obama administration overtime rule expanded overtime pay for so-called managerial workers. Before Obama, these workers making more than $23,000 a year could not get overtime pay. The Obama rule expanded that salary threshold up to $47,000. Millions of people earning between $23,000 and $47,000 would get overtime pay under Obama's rule. Trump's Labor Department, though, doesn't want those workers to get overtime pay. The news is brought to you by Impact, the Iron Worker Management Progressive Action Cooperative Trust. Impact's mission is more jobs for contractors and for iron worker members. You can become an iron worker in Washtenaw Community College's pre-apprenticeship program. Finish 24 credits at your own pace and become an Iron Worker Local 25 apprentice. Earn while you learn. Apply now at wcnet.edu/iron. That's wcnet.edu/iron. You've been listening to WIN, Workers Independent News. For more information, visit workersindependentnews.com.
Remembering that united we bargain, divided we beg. Rick Smith.
He's going the distance. He's going for speed. She's all alone.
I gotta tell you, I love whoever the headline writer is for some of these organizations. Just kind of mind-blowing. And I saw the report yesterday over at Politico. The headline read, CBO, skinny repeal could boost uninsured by 16 million. And I'm going, boost, is that the right word? Kind of reminds me when USA Today had the headline, Senate plan insures 1 million more. No, you're still leaving millions of people uninsured. How do you put a positive spin on that? It's just absolutely mind-blowing. And I look at this discussion around the skinny repeal, and look, good on the Dems for having a quick mock-up of a CBO score that would say 16 million more could be uninsured if this is where they go. We definitely live in crazy times, and here to talk about this latest debacle and all the insanity that ensued yesterday, our good friend Joshua Holland. Josh is the Nation Institute Fellow, also a contributor over at The Nation and Rolling Stone magazine. Josh, thanks for taking time for us.
Hey, Rick, thanks for having me.
So what do you think of this? So we're going to boost uninsured.
Listen, you got to look at the bright side. This is good for the mortuary industry.
Yeah, I mean, with every loser, there's a winner, right?
You're right. You get a few thousand more unnecessary deaths every year. That's they're stimulating the economy. This is jobs. We're talking jobs.
Yeah.
So look, the problem. One of the problems here is that is the phrase "skinny repeal." It implies that this is something that is going to be passed and is a light version of repeal that leaves a lot of Obamacare intact. The plan is not to implement this. They know that that's not going to happen. If they did, it would cause it would basically blow up the individual markets. What they want to do is they want to get something passed through the Senate. So it's the lowest common denominator. It's things that they hope that they could get 51 senators to agree on, or 50 senators and Mike Pence to break the tie. And then they'll go to conference in the House. Now, here's a big problem. When you go to conference in the House and you have a bill that doesn't have much in it, that just says we're going to repeal the mandate and repeal the medical device tax, maybe there's going to be a little bit of money for opioid treatment, but it's basically going to be a very brief bill. It's not going to have much in it. When you go to conference in that situation, you lose all of your leverage because you don't have a real bill. Only the House will have a real bill, and that bill was the monstrosity that they passed in the House, which I believe it's easy to mix up all the different CBO scores. I believe that one strips insurance for 23 million people and would reduce Medicaid spending over the next 20 years by 35%, basically gutting the Medicaid program. So at that point, the House negotiators have all the clout, all the leverage. They say, well, we passed a real bill, you guys didn't. So the outcome has to be something much closer to the House's version than the Senate's so-called skinny repeal. It's fat enough to, as you say, strip 16 million people of their coverage, but it's fatter than that still.
No, I mean, at the end of it, what to me it's about completely destroying the Affordable Care Act and taking Medicaid with it. I mean, because we've set up this system that's heavily based on Medicaid spending. You're gonna pull the rug out from under that, and by the way, get rid of the mandates, which you used to be in favor of, and get rid of the taxes that paid for it. It's going to collapse.
Well, I mean, you're absolutely right, and I think you're even understating the problem, because not only are they touching the Medicare expansion, which is not problematic at all, right? I mean, you can point to real problems in the Affordable Care Act exchanges. You can't point to real problems in the Medicaid program. It's a solution addressing a non-existent problem, but it's worse than that, because the spending formula, the cost of living formula, basically, that they are going to impose 10 years from now, right? So after all of these people, most of these people are out of office, or many of them are out of office, will cut Medicaid much deeper than the expansion. So they're not just going after expanded Medicaid, and I think this is important for people to understand. They're going after the Medicaid that's existed previously, before the Affordable Care Act. They're going to cut that as well. So it's a disastrous thing, and let's also just remember that they got to this point where they have to either pass a phenomenally unpopular bill, right? There were these bills are polling at 15-16% support. They got there by lying repeatedly and consistently about what the Affordable Care Act actually did. So they didn't approach this with any sort of honest ideological criticism. They talked about Obamacare as if it were Ebola, right, or a planet-killing asteroid. And now they find themselves in a position where they can't say, we're going to tweak this and improve it, and we're going to call it Trump Care, which would be smart politically. They've put themselves in a position where they have two paths out. They can pass a very destructive bill that hurts millions of people, and I should point out, that concentrates the pain on their constituents, right? The Trump supporters in rural areas are going to be hit much harder than folks living in a city in a blue state. And they can do that, or they can face a base that they've told for years, that they've lied to for years about how destructive this is, and they can face that base's wrath, right? Because now they control all powers of government. They've been saying for 8 years, 7 years now, if you just give us the power, we're going to fix all of this, and you'll have lower premiums, and we'll cover everybody, Trump said on the campaign trail repeatedly, and those lies are being exposed. So, this is how we got here. Let's not forget that.
Yeah. You can have cake and eat it too, Josh. I mean,
and you won't get fat.
Exactly. It's going to be great. It's going to be tremendous. It's going to be incredible. And the reality is you're right. So the question is does the base, do they understand? Do they ever get it? Do they ever figure out that they were duped? I mean, or do you?
I think if they actually lose their subsidized health care, I don't see how the veil of denial isn't going to be punctured at that point, right? That hits home so hard. If you're thrown off of Medicare, or if you're
not going to be thrown off Medicare.
Medicaid, I'm sorry. If you're thrown off of Medicaid or your grandmother loses her position in a nursing home because of Medicaid cuts,
right?
If you're kicked out of some opioid treatment program, how can you say this is the fault of liberal college professors and the New York Times?
I'm sure the right-wing echo chamber will figure out a way to do that, because you look at yesterday, for instance, and one of the things that I just kept sitting as I was watching the news, just shaking my head, going, in the Senate they're talking about taking health care from millions of people, and we're talking about the transgender issue again, masterfully. Hey, shiny thing over here, and our entire media just ran to it.
Yeah, I'm gonna dissent on this one a little bit. I think that it's not the thing that really troubled me about the transgender thing is not that it was a distraction. It's that it was transactional, right? What he was doing was he was giving some red meat to the hardcore right.
Yes.
To shore up support so that he could attack Jeff Sessions. So, let's not. I don't think it was just a distraction. I think it was much more strategic than that. And I think that it has to do ultimately with trying to shut down the Russia investigation. So he's going to screw over all these patriotic servicemen and women, right, who have put their lives on the line defending the country. And by the way, nobody knows how this might be implemented. If they're dishonorably discharged, they lose all of their veterans' benefits. So this isn't just I don't agree that it's just a distraction. I think it's much more evil than that, much more insidious than that. He has decided to go to war for whatever personal, narcissistic, pathological reasons with the first senator who endorsed him, with the white nationalist who has implemented his policies with most aggressively in terms of rolling back prison reform, immigrants, and what he saw was that the hard right base was not happy about this with Jeff Sessions, and he figured I'll throw them a bone, and that's just, it's insidious.
No, I agree. I agree that that's part of it, but it was also a major distraction. I mean, at the end of the day, nobody was talking about healthcare yesterday. Everyone was talking about this. And while I think I'm on the right side, this should not be an issue. It, to me, was used in that way as a massive distraction, and also the dual, as you've pointed out, to feed the base a little bit. But I still think it was the distraction, because we weren't talking about it yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems, I'm not saying that I don't think that it was meant in part to get us to not focus as much as we would have on healthcare. For me, when you say it's a distraction, it underplays how pernicious it was. That's my problem. It's like, it's not just a distraction. It's much more messed up than that.
So let me ask you this, because I had a couple of these conversations yesterday with folks who disagreed with me on that this shouldn't be in this day and age an issue, that for people who believe in smaller, less intrusive government and with the libertarian ideology, that this shouldn't even be an issue. That they were hell bent on, no, we shouldn't have these people in the military. They shouldn't be allowed in society. We should, really bizarre ideas. How does the Democratic Party, how do they deal with that? Because you just saw a report come out today that with the better deal, they're trying to focus more on economy, on kitchen table issues, and maybe not so much of these really hotly contested social issues. How do they bridge that? How do they deal with that?
I think that in this case, in this specific case, because that's part of a larger question, right? But let's stick to the specific case. You give them enough rope, and they will overreach. Because one thing that I've seen in the last 24 hours since Trump tweeted out this order is a lot of, not a lot, but there are some significant, some surprising conservatives, Republicans who are no fans of the LGBT community. They're not pro-LGBT rights, who blasted the White House for this, because it is one thing to say we should not pay for trans surgery. That's one thing. That's one position. And when you say we're going to kick thousands of people out of the military who are airmen and, snipers and special forces operators and commanders and doctors. That's a bridge too far for a lot of conservatives. So we need to also be less defensive about these things. We need to recognize when they are on the wrong side of a social issue. We always assume, if we're on this, identity politics thing, it's always going to blow back on us. You know what? This is them engaging in identity politics, and it's going to blow back on them because this is real soldiers being thrown out of the military, and that's just a bridge too far.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, at the end of it, though, these are things that as a society we're going to have to work past, and I think government has got to be the way that we do some of this. And to see, like I said, I saw the tweets yesterday, and I just said, wow, we're going to spend all day talking about this, and healthcare is going to get thrown to the backside. Because I expected something to get passed yesterday.
I see people paying attention to healthcare as well. I mean, the outrage of these bills that they're doing, it's so over the top, right? I mean, every CBO score that comes down, you're like, what are these people thinking? I don't know that we're that easily distracted.
I sure hope not. Sure hope not. How do you see this thing going, Josh? Last question I've got for you. How do you see this playing out over the next couple of days?
Here's what it comes down to. If you get a skinny bill, I don't think it's a done deal that they're going to pass a skinny bill, because I think that there are some senators that are like, wait a second, this is a bait and switch. Some of those senators who are from Medicaid expansion states, I don't even want to call them moderates. They're just practical, and they see that this is going to blow back on them in a way that really, really hurts. Some of them may see that this is a bait and switch and a way to put maximum pressure on them at the very end of the process, right? So if you get something looking like the House bill coming back for a vote, that is going to be an opportunity for the right to put more pressure on them than at any other point, because they'll be standing between this 7-year promise and and the base. So if they get it there, I'm hesitant to make a prediction here, Rick. I know, I try to be a good pundit and say I know how things are going to go. It's a really close margin, and traditionally the rule is that the hardline right does not cave, and that the moderates always cave at the end. I don't know that that's going to be true this time, and they can only lose 2 votes if McCain is out at the final at the final bell when they come back from conference. There's no guarantee that McCain's going to come back from Arizona after the whole process is done for the final vote.
Yeah,
so
there
they
might
only
not
have
be
2
another
or 3
Gipper
votes
moment.
to lose, and Susan Collins has been really the only one that I'll give a lot of credit to. She's been extremely firm and extremely consistent, and I think that Susan Collins is a definite no. So is there 2 more from Heller and Murkowski and Portman and Capito, and I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the fact that it only takes 50 votes, to me, is a huge problem. Took 60 votes to make it, 50 to destroy it, seems wrong to me.
I'm with you on that.
Just a thought. Josh, always great talking with you. I appreciate the time.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate that.
Always our good friend Joshua Holland. You want to check out some of his stuff? We'll get a link at thericksmithshow.com. Quick break, right back. Stick around. This is The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
Controversial, thought-provoking, opinionated. Rick Smith.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2.
On this day in labor history, the year was 1903. Labor leader Mother Mary Harris Jones was leading a march of children laborers to President Theodore Roosevelt's summer home in New York. The long march had began 20 days before in Philadelphia. Mother Jones was hoping to draw national attention to the plight of child workers. The action caught the public's attention, and across the nation, newspapers reported on the March of the Mill Children. All the way in Leadville, a town in the mountains of Colorado west of Denver, the Herald Democrat carried the story of Mother Jones's East Coast March. The paper's July 27th article began, quote, "It is a pathetic spectacle. That little army of Mother Jones, marching through the broiling heat of summer, lay a petition before the president. She says truly that her errand is as vital as any which takes persons to Oyster Bay. She comes to please the cause of the child laborers, and to emphasize her protest, has with her several score of ill-clad, puny children, the result of the enforced work of these children in factories. When the children's march reached the president's door 2 days later, the president was not there to meet them. Yet the march had sparked national attention. In 1904, the National Child Labor Committee formed to take action on the issue. Pennsylvania passed tougher child labor restrictions the next year, but federal protections would have to wait until the next President Roosevelt. The passage of the Fair Labor Standards Act in 1938, signed by President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, finally included nationwide limits to child labor.
Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, and follow us on the Twitters at Labor History in 2.
Radio of, for, and by we the working people. The Rick Smith Show.
What the hell we fighting for? Just surrender and it won't hurt at all. Just got time to say your prayer while you're waiting for the hammer to hammer.
I had one of these moments yesterday where, I kind of kicked myself for not taking a picture of this guy's truck. I struggle with that, because, I don't know that I want people just taking pictures of me whenever they feel like it. I've been to, like rallies and stuff where, I was at the March for Truth, and there was this guy he was taking pictures of this kid, like 100 of them. And I was like, dude, what are you doing? I'm trying to get the right picture. I'm going, you've taken enough, move along. So I struggle with, doing that because I don't know. Is it really worth getting into a fight over? Where I grew up, usually that stuff ended up in fisticuffs. But I saw this guy's truck yesterday that it was just covered with bumper stickers on how much he loved Trump and how much he hated the media and how much, CNN was horrible. And I got to find this. I got to find this guy again because it was one of those things where he invested, a bunch of money to just, make sure that everyone knew that he was pro-Trump and anti-news media, which is scary. Because, you get the message. Trump hates the media. Trump hates the press. Hates them. It's that CNN and that fake news and that failing New York Times. Those journalists are public enemy number one. And, you go, yeah, this is fun and games. Most sane, rational people look at it going, yeah, he's just an idiot. But a new poll out yesterday by The Economist and YouGov, really, honestly, scary stuff. They asked the question, and look, I honestly can't believe that you would even have to ask this in this day and age, but they asked whether they would support, whether the person they were asking would support permitting the courts to shut down news media outlets for publishing or broadcasting stories that are biased or inaccurate. Honestly, this is scary stuff. What they found was, they found that we're pretty much like everything, divided evenly. 28% are in favor of permitting the courts to shut down news outlets. 29% opposed. 43% don't know, which is kind of scary. And that number was the one that really scares me, just how how dumb we seem to be. When you break it down for party identification, for partisan purposes, people who self-identify as Republicans, 45% support shutting down news organizations that they think are biased or do something that's inaccurate. 45%. 20% opposed to the idea. Only 20% of Republicans in this survey think that the government should not be allowed to shut down news organizations. Now remember, these are the people who want smaller, less intrusive government. I want government to tell me what to do, or what to read, or what to hear, or what to see, except if we don't agree with it. Honestly and truthfully, as I was reading through this, I'm going, as much as I hate Fox News, as much as I think of virtually every word that comes out of their mouth is a lie and a piece of propaganda, I wouldn't support shutting it down. For a couple reasons. One, being we do believe in this country in the idea of free speech. We kind of buy that. We kind of buy the idea that we need a fourth estate to hold the other three branches of government, hold the three branches of government accountable. So even if I don't agree with fake news on Fox, even if I think it's all BS, even if I think it's all just cheerleading, I want it there. Because I want to know what they're saying. The fact that we've gotten to this point is scary for our democracy. Scares the hell out of me that 45% of the Republicans polled in this. Now, maybe they were just being goofy and, hey, let's blow the poll. Yeah, lock them up. Or maybe the rhetoric that's coming out of the Trump tweets, maybe the rhetoric coming out of this administration is actually changing that party's thinking. Remember, these are the people who said we don't want government involved in things. Smaller, less intrusive government. Freedom. This very scary. Because, at the end of it, look, I watch a lot of news. And, you can go through and you can find bias in everything. Exactly what do you mean by bias? When this administration does something that I think is insane, and it's a lot of stuff, is my bias against this administration doing dumb stuff enough to get me thrown off? According to this, seems like maybe. And you think about the future of democracy in this country. This is really scary stuff. And what bothers me is you see this stuff in authoritarian states. You see this kind of simple thinking. Places like Russia, where you have this xenophobia and this homophobia and this kind of dictatorial thought among the leadership that does filter down to the people. Scary, scary times. I'd love to hear your thoughts. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, more on the healthcare front. What would the skinny budget mean? What should we be doing? And are there people standing up against it? Right back after this.
But it only brought more money to their hands. And the poor keep getting poorer. People turn away, not able to admit the way they planned. It's taking all the soul away from everything they grew. They can't have the legs on which to stand.
Uncovering the con in conservatism. Rick Smith.
People need to be prepared. They need to be ready and don't wait for somebody to ask you to evacuate your home.
Evacuations and rescues as extreme weather impacts the U.S. New study finds today's extreme heat days are tomorrow's new normal. The Treasury Department sues ExxonMobil for violating Russia's sanctions in oil deal. Plus,
I'm not sure what climate change means.
Trump nominates non-scientist for top USDA science job.
Fantastic. All of those stories and more straight ahead. From BradBlog.com, I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
Climate change has destroyed the Great Barrier Reef, spelling disaster for miles of coral and millions of fish. But did you know global warming might also kill humans? Which saddens me because some of the people I know are human.
Not me. This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, this is one of those moments in time that you have long warned about. Most of the country is absolutely sweltering right now, except for out here in the West, where we're dealing with an incoming tropical storm or a hurricane or something like that.
Yeah, and that sweltering heat, unfortunately, is not projected to get any better. A new study projects that extreme heat days that we've observed this summer, not just in the United States, but around the world, are likely to become the average summer temperatures within the next 20 years. That's by 2040. For some regions, that could happen as soon as 2020, regardless of any actions taken to reduce global greenhouse gas emissions.
Yeah, I was going to say it's probably likely to happen sooner rather than later, since we've seen so many scientific predictions that have, in fact, come to pass earlier than originally predicted.
And global warming is predicted to accelerate extreme weather. And it's happening right now. Torrential rains caused flash floods in at least 2 different regions of the United States on Monday, forcing evacuations and rescues. First, near Tucson, Arizona, at least 17 hikers were rescued from flash floods after being trapped overnight. And at the southern New York state border, at least 10 people were rescued from flash floods that closed a highway and forced residential evacuations. In Montana, the nation's largest wildfire, the Lodgepole Fire in eastern Montana, has burned through more than 350 square miles, larger in area than New York City. Officials say extremely hot, dry, and windy conditions have accelerated the fire's pace and created extremely dangerous fire conditions, according to Public Information Officer Jeremy Olson on Montana Public Radio.
Firefighters are experiencing anywhere from 8 to 10 to 12-foot flame lengths in that sagebrush and in the timber draw areas and stuff. It's just not safe to fight fire in there. People need to be prepared across the state of Montana.
Over in Britain, British scientists with the UK's National Weather Service, the Met Office, warned in a new study that man-made global warming has heightened the risk of multiple crop disasters occurring in major farming regions around the world simultaneously. That's due to shifting rainfall patterns and persistent extreme weather events like heat waves. And that information is kind of important, especially when, here in the nation's capital, Donald Trump has picked a non-scientist to fill one of the top science posts at the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Sam Clovis, a Trump campaign advisor and former talk radio host, has no background in the hard sciences and no experience in agriculture policy.
Yeah, but he says otherwise.
Well, in an interview with Iowa Public Radio when he was running for U.S. Senate back in 2014, Clovis called climate science junk science.
I'm extremely skeptical. I've looked at the science, and I have enough of a science background to know when I'm being boofed, and I think a lot of what we see is junk science.
When he's being boofed?
Yeah, whatever that means. That's the guy who would oversee the USDA agriculture science programs.
Well, good luck, farmers.
Meanwhile, the U.S. Treasury Department has fined ExxonMobil $2 million, the maximum under law, for violating sanctions that the United States imposed on Russia. That after Exxon signed a massive oil exploration contract with Russia's state-owned oil company back in 2014, while Rex Tillerson, now U.S. Secretary of State, was the oil company's chief executive. Exxon has retaliated by filing a countersuit against the Treasury Department. Finally, just days after Tropical Storm Dawn dissipated in the Atlantic Ocean, over in the Pacific Ocean, Tropical Storm Hillary has intensified into Hurricane Hillary.
Oh, boy.
That's according to the National Hurricane Center. But again, pure coincidence. Storm names were decided more than a decade ago. But Hillary is moving away from the North American coast and poses no threat.
In any event, little surprise that Hillary turned out to be more effective than Dawn, for whatever it's worth. For much more on all of those stories and the ones we couldn't get to today, please check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com. Don't forget you can download our reports anytime via Stitcher, TuneIn, or iTunes. Find us, follow us, and share us worldwide on the Facebooks and the Twitters at Green News Report. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
And this has been your Green News Report.
Here's the simplest thing. Figure out an affordable rate and let people use that, something that won't undermine your quality of life, won't interfere with your ability to make expenses, won't interfere with your ability to save money for your kids' college education, and let people buy in to Medicare or Medicaid.
I got a working class blues. I work all day to take all my class. I got a working class blues. I work all day to take all my class.
Welcome back to The Rick Smith Show. Check out the website, thericksmithshow.com. Questions, comments, something on your mind, you can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. So it's been reported that Texas Senator John Cornyn was caught on a hot mic talking to Indiana Senator Todd Young, saying, we're trying to figure out what to do with the individual mandates. Again, what they're trying to do is they're trying to destroy that. They're trying to destroy what's left of Obamacare. Because, look, at the end of the day, I keep saying I think they've already done enough to destroy it. This is just kind of finishing it off. And this talk of the skinny repeal, which now we know could cut some 16 million people off of insurance over the next couple of years, seems to be what they really, really want. And here to talk about the skinny repeal, where we're going, why we're going, and what we should be doing. Mara Kelson's here. She's the Managing Director of Health Policy there at the Center for American Progress. Mara, thanks for taking time for us.
Thank you for having me.
So skinny repeal. Could this be the answer? Could this be what the conservatives and the base wants?
Well, I think the actual skinny bill is not what the base and what the senators want as the final outcome, but it allows them to keep kicking the can towards more comprehensive changes to the healthcare system that are going to uninsure tens of millions of people.
I look at this, and again, I keep coming back to the sad reality that for many of the senators, the plans that were put forth aren't bad enough. Yeah. And I guess I struggle with the fact that we've got people in this country who are going, that, it's okay. We're going to take healthcare from millions of people so that we can give more to the very wealthy. I mean, for me, it basically boils down to something that simple.
Oh, I agree completely. I think that I've never been involved in any sort of debate that has more moral clarity to it than this debate. It's just unbelievable that they keep trying to work this hard to take care away from so many people.
And you can't even get into the whys at this point because they're so diverse and so. I know there are some true believers who think that the free market is the answer, and I got to tell you, I've written off everybody, anyone who talks to me about free market solutions, and they say that they're on Medicare, they need to go away. But yes. I can't tell you how many of those people I've had because they have this blind faith belief.
Yep, exactly. So it's the during the Tea Party rallies back in 2009, the number of signs that you would see that say "Keep government out of my Medicare" is just unbelievable.
Now there is a potential savior, as I understand it. In fact, 10 governors, one of which is my governor here in Pennsylvania, Tom Wolf, and good on him. But 10 senators have sent a letter saying, "Hey, don't do this. We've expanded Medicaid. Don't screw this up."
Exactly, and I think what's really important for people to realize, I think, about the Medicaid piece of this, and it's why I think the governors came out with such a great statement, is that the skinny bill is very pared down. It doesn't actually include any Medicaid savings, but it allows Senate leadership to meet in secret in a conference committee with the House, and they can take provisions from the House bill, which of course included just really ends the Medicaid expansion, drastically restructures the Medicaid program. So it's really, you can call it a shell game or a Trojan horse plan, but I think that the governors clearly saw through that.
Say that part again about meeting in secret, because you know what, I'm kind of remembering the entire 2016 election cycle of how Obamacare was rammed down our throats and how it was done in secret and how they didn't have any say and granted it took 60 votes to get there, but remind me again of the secret part.
Oh, well, I hope you debunk those claims that the ACA was done in secret. There were hundreds of hearings and hours of debate. But essentially, when there is a piece of legislation, and if the House and the Senate pass different versions of it, conferees, which are basically like the committee heads and other leadership people, they meet in what's called conference committee, and they hammer out the details to make sure that obviously there can only be one piece of legislation that comes out of Congress for the president to sign. So in this case, what would happen, and the worst case scenario, and I think that this is really what their end game is they'll just pass anything right now, which would be the skinny repeal, and then they meaning the senators, will go meet with the House conferees, and they can simply reinsert all the Medicaid provisions and all of the horrible stuff that is in the House bill, and then it goes back for final approval to both the House and the Senate, and it's a straight up and down vote, no amendments, no changes allowed.
Right. I mean, the reason I wanted you to highlight that because, I keep having people tell me, well, this is beginning to open up the debate, and now we're going to have, there's going to be real debate on substantive issues, and we're going to find out what the plan is. I'm going, there's no plan. Maybe it's just I grew up in the 70s where, in kind of simplistic thinking of, Schoolhouse Rock. You remember I'm Just a Bill? I mean,
oh, yes.
There was a path, and you had hearings, and there was a whole bunch of input, and the community had some thoughts, and there was a bunch of stuff. None of that happened here.
No, not at all. And every single, I shouldn't say every single, but, the American Medical Association, all of the different doctor groups, the nurses, everybody who really understands the healthcare system is opposed to what they are doing, and they are not taking input from anybody. They are completely smashing all sorts of democratic norms in this process.
I mean, so again, and it's like a lot of issues that the Republicans take on. Anybody who has any, experience, any expertise, any knowledge, they seem to be pushed aside, and the most radical of voices. Because again, and the reason I brought up Cornyn's piece is that they really don't know what they're doing, and they have no clue of where they're going, but they're doing it.
Yep. Well, he not only said that on the hot mic, but he also admitted that the skinny bill is just really a device to get them to the conference committee that I was describing, and that they will, quote, deal with Medicaid at that time.
Yeah, and again, you keep going back to it, and I keep telling my friends, Medicaid was something Republicans were opposed to, many of them. And it's been something that they've wanted to destroy for a long time, along with Medicare. Because if you think Medicaid's the only thing that's going to be under attack, think again, because they want to get rid of Medicare as well.
Yes. I mean, if you look at the blueprint, Better Way plan, I think it's called the Better Way, what Paul Ryan has put out year after year after year. It includes these block grants and capping Medicaid payments, federal Medicaid support. It includes putting voucher-like programs on the Medicare program. I mean, this is just really one part of their really obsession with undermining all sorts of supports that millions and millions of Americans rely on.
Yeah, but they would tell you, and I'm sure you know this, that they would say, that's giving you choice, Mara. You would have the choice, and you could go out in the free market, and people could compete for your business. It would be could States could innovate. They could do really great things, right?
Oh, absolutely. That you have the talking points down perfectly. You can only innovate when you have funding, and, it basically allows them to innovate and make terrible changes to programs. So, it basically will force states to have to make some really, really devastating decisions about how much coverage, whether or not you have to cover certain people on Medicaid. So, what happens to the people that you don't have to cover? What happens to the benefits of the people who do remain in the program? There are no good ways. You cannot innovate your way out of $800 billion worth of cuts.
And that's just here in this part of it. That's not the Trump budget, which was proposing even greater cuts.
Exactly. I think that the Trump budget completely underscores the fact that once you change how the federal government pays for Medicaid, it just becomes a piggy bank for all other funding that they want to do. So once you cap the federal responsibility for paying for Medicaid, you can just like turn the lever on that and just keep ratcheting down the federal support that you can't do now.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. What do you think of this scheme that's been reported by the Washington Examiner by Republican Senator from Montana, Steve Daines, who is talking about proposing an amendment to push for single payer?
I think it just really underscores how not seriously the Republicans are taking this debate. I mean, I saw this great tweet that said something like, I can't imagine that a Republican senator would spend this amount of time, would spend more time picking out a car than they are messing with 1/6 of the economy and people's lives. So I think it's just a clear indication of how they're not really considering what this means for their constituents.
Yeah, because look, I'm a single payer guy. I've been a single payer guy from day one, even before the Affordable Care, when they were even discussing the Affordable Care Act. I said it just seems sane to me to have one giant insurance pool, and I don't even really care if it's private or public, but to have one giant insurance pool that everybody is in from cradle to grave, and that you pay into it through a mechanism, like taxes or something, so that you don't fall behind on premiums, and you do it based on income, so that everyone from cradle to grave is covered, and that you're in it the entire time. So you have healthy people, sick people, working people, everybody in it. That to me is the way we should be going forward, not these hodgepodge of let the invisible hand keep giving us the invisible finger. I'm sorry, it just seems rational.
No, I mean, and there are really good policy reasons for going with a single payer system. I just think that this particular amendment, I think, just makes a mockery of of this process, and it's just kind of indicative of their disdain for really taking this issue seriously.
Yeah, I get some of my neoliberal friends who I love. They're great people. Just kind of the Republican light mentality I struggle with. That they believe that it's a great idea, it's a great fantasy, but it's never going to happen. And I'm going, well, it's never going to happen if you don't actually try. And maybe it might not happen tomorrow, but we should be moving towards that, because we've got so many of these hodgepodge systems. Like Medicaid. Most people don't know that it's a huge funder for seniors. Didn't know that.
Exactly.
It does help the poor and it does help children, but it's a big fund for seniors. We take care of the sick, the old. We've got an insurance industry that benefits from taking care of the healthy. That seems ridiculous to me.
You know what? I just realized I was just sitting here nodding, and then I realized while I'm nodding, your listeners cannot see that I'm agreeing with you.
So last question I've got for you, because look, I'm cognizant of the fact that right now single payer is not even on the map. I think it's something we should be talking about, be changing hearts and minds to come around to common sense ideas like, one insurance pool. But I look at this. This has got to be something we fight back right now, because as much as I'm not a big fan of the ACA, it was a huge step forward.
Yeah, very much so. And if we can't save this bill, we're going to be starting from a much worse place. And the ACA is not perfect. It has any legislation that affects this much of our economy and really deals with healthcare, because it's such a personal topic, is always going to need some changes and amendments and have it grow. Medicare has been amended like 50 times, and this idea that the ACA is one piece and it has to stay the exact same way as when it was passed is just really, it's harmful on efforts to expand coverage, and it's not bringing us in the correct direction.
Yeah, I mean, it's mind blowing to me, and the thing that really kind of is I don't know if it's poetic justice or I take no solace in it, but I think the people who are going to be harmed most are the people who voted for these folks.
Mm-hmm. It is certainly going to be especially older, rural, lower income Americans are really going to bear the brunt of this. And, I do think that a lot of them were sold a real bill of goods. Trump talked a really good game about universal coverage, and yep. They're going to make it better, and everything that they are doing right now is a total betrayal of what they told their supporters.
And they're going to have to remember it. Mara, I appreciate you taking time for us. Thanks so much for your thoughts.
Thank you.
Great talk with you, Mara Kelson, Managing Director of Health Policy there at the Center for American Progress. You want to check out their stuff, we'll get a link at thericksmithshow.com. Quick break, right back after this. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk.
Get old. Don't let us get stupid, all right. Just make us be brave. Make us play nice. Let us be together tonight.
Thought-provoking, intelligent conversation with a heart. The voice of the working class, Rick Smith. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1918. That was the day miners' president Ginger Goodwin was shot dead in British Columbia. His murder sparked Canada's first general strike in Vancouver the following week. Goodwin had arrived in British Columbia 8 years earlier and found work in the Cumberland mines on Vancouver Island. He considered working conditions in the mines absolutely appalling and began advocating for safety and organizing miners. He was soon blacklisted after participating in a 2-year coal miners' strike for recognition on the island. He moved to Trail, British Columbia, where he emerged as a Socialist Party candidate in the 1916 election. He was also elected president of the International Union of Mine, Mill and Smelter Workers, District 6, the vice president of British Columbia's Federation of Labor, and the head of the local Trades and Labor Council. He openly expressed his opposition to Canada's entry into the war, stating that workers were now employed in killing each other. He was found unfit for military duty after a medical exam. That was until he led a strike for the 8-hour day at Consolidated Mining and Smelting. It was the world's largest lead and zinc smelter and a key munitions producer during the war. His status was quickly changed to make him eligible for conscription. He fled to the Cumberland Hills, where he hid out for months to avoid the draft. And on this day, Goodwin was shot dead by a Dominion Police special constable. He was brought back to Cumberland, where thousands turned out for his funeral in a mile-long procession. The Vancouver labor movement was outraged by Goodwin's murder and called a one-day general strike on August 2nd to protest his killing.
Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, and follow us on the Twitters at Labor History in 2.
From UN headquarters in New York, this is your World in 2 Minutes. I'm your host, Luke Vargas, for Talk Media News. A new survey of brains donated to science by now-deceased football players has found that 99% of former NFL athletes suffered from a severe degenerative brain condition known as chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or CTE. Of the more than 110 brains donated to science from pro and amateur football players, 85% showed signs of the condition, which often manifests itself in dementia-like symptoms. CTE was first identified in the 1920s among boxers and called at the time being punch drunk. But recent research shows it's not only prevalent in contact sports like football and soccer, but in incidents of domestic violence, car accidents, and in military and police service. Among those playing sports, the risks aren't limited to pro athletes. Studies show repeated concussions, which can eventually lead to CTE, are a reality for college, high school, and even peewee football players. But look to global public health authorities like the World Health Organization, and you won't find much about these sports-related risks.
WHO, CDC, no one is actually doing a good enough job talking about risk in brain injury across the board.
Nicole Fisher is the executive director of the Global Brain Health Coalition, and she says with the overwhelming evidence of health risks associated with contact sports like football, spectators can no longer plead ignorance about the health risks incurred by pro athletes.
We see it. We pay for it. We spend a lot of money to watch people get brain damage.
Even if public health groups have been slow to respond to the risk of brain injury among athletes, American parents may be starting to vote with their feet. A recent study tracked youth participation in sports from 2009 to 2014 and found an 11% decline in contact sport participation. For more global news headlines, visit talkmedianews.com.
Making the blue blood see red. The Rick Smith Show.
Fascist, you may be surprised.
Call often. You've got time today. I'm seeing people saying, look, I got right through to their office. That doesn't make me happy. Those phone lines should be jammed. 202-224-3121. 202-224-3121. Or my favorite, 877-SOB-USOB. Actually works. I just used it. Call them. Let your representatives know. Let your senators know that come November 6, 2018, you will remember, or when they're up for election next, they have to fear the wrath of we the people. Look, at the end of it, they take this away, another attack on working people. And look, right now there are 3 governors that are really important. You've got, because I'm sure you may have seen the letter, 10 governors in a bipartisan fashion wrote a letter to the Senate Republicans telling them to reject the skinny health care bill. Here in Pennsylvania, where I'm at, Governor Tom Wolf signed on to that. Good on him. But there were 3 Republicans of the 10. You had Brian Sandoval of Nevada. You had Larry Hogan of Maryland and John Kasich of Ohio. Kasich and Sandoval are the important ones because they're going to be able to hopefully put some pressure on Portman and on Heller. Heller being one of the keys. Hogan not so much because you got two Democratic senators there anyway. The reality is these governors get it. They've expanded Medicaid in their state. They've got money coming into the state. They've set up, I know where I'm at in Pennsylvania, there is a very healthy, robust exchange. And what's weird to me, again, I live in a very red area. I'm just a couple of miles from a county that has no real health care infrastructure to speak of. One's now being built. There are clinics propping up and there are small, things popping up. But there's not a hospital in the entire county. And because of the Medicaid expansion, they're now building some infrastructure. They're now building some facilities. If Medicaid expansion, if the Medicaid money goes away, all of that goes with it. And understand, that county overwhelmingly, I think there were either 1 or 2 in the percent voting for Trump in this state. That all goes away. I mean, at some point, don't we have to wake up to the reality that these people are doing us harm? So you got to make the calls. Like I said, my favorite number, 1-877-SOB-USOB. Stands for, I think, Senate Office Building and U.S. Office Building. Or 202-224-3121. Got to let them know. Today is the day. If you missed any of today's program, thericksmithshow.com. That's where you get the podcast, the Rick Smith Show app on the smartphone. Take the program on the go wherever you go. And as always, you can email me here, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you back here tomorrow.